Hi, my name is John McFetrich, and this is part 3 of a series I've been doing on Xamarin iOS and specifically the CollectionView. And in the first two, we just took a look at populating a collection view from our photo album on iOS, and which works nice, but our marketing department's a little happier that we've got a little more function, but they want more function. So what we're now going to do is add selectability of these images, and I'm going to throw a few wrinkles here. Yeah, I could just put this right into an image view and we'd be done. And indeed, we are going to use the image view, but we're going to wrap it in a scroll view. And with that scroll view, we'll be able to pan, and then we'll add some code that'll add to actually write some code and not just use the designer. And then as a to add some zooming and to see how easy it is in iOS as opposed to other platforms that I've worked on, like WPF. And finally, it's completely optional. I'm going to show you how to get the full image from the library, from the photo library, and to really see the power of the scrolling. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing, of course, we need a new view. We'll call this our detailed view, and because as we select one of these photos, and actually remember these are actually thumbnails, because when we created these, they were, if we look again back at our data source, the actual size here was 100 by 100. So we requested a thumbnail that will maintain the aspect ratio from the photo from the album on our phone. So what I want to do here is to add a new controller. I'll just grab a view controller here and drag it over and drop it on our design surface. We'll just make this a little smaller. And now I want this to be a custom class, so I take and select my controller, and I want to have a detailed view for the name of my new class. And we also want to make sure that we put this, we're going to need this storyboard ID, because this is going to become part of our storyboard. So we need to fill in this field too. So in the moment we select our class name, we should get a new, and we do indeed. We have a new custom view, a custom class that's called Detailed View that extends UI View Controller, and this is what we're going to be working with. But now the next thing I need to do is, of course, to add my selection handler. When we click on one, or we select one of the photos, we want to be able to navigate to this page. Now, if I was doing this in iOS, in Xcode, I would do it differently. And I think it's actually, as I keep saying, the Xcode is much more mature. There, I'm able to take and grab and use and create a segue between my cell and the and my new view. I don't see the same capability in Dev Studio, in Visual Studio, and so we have to find a way around this. And I'm going to pull off a couple kludges here, which I don't like doing, but I see no choice in doing. So the first thing we need to do is modify our photo detail custom class, and this is of course a view controller, and I need to add this public property here, and this is so that I can pass the image that is returned from our photo library into my detail, or my photo detail view, so I can show that in my image and view. And secondly, more importantly, I have to go up to my and do some work on my collection view. In here, before we just and we're in our collection view custom class, and in our awake from nib, right now I'm hooking up my data source so that my collection view knows where to get the photos, and now I want to be able to add a selection handler. And the way we do this is we create this collection delegate class. And again, instead of I would do this in Xcode, I would do it differently because this is not the cleanest solution in the world, as you will soon see. So I new up my delegate, and my delegate is a property of the class. So I just create it, and here I will override the item selected method. And what I do in here, I'm going to be passed in the index is going to be the number of the cell in the collection. So I know the cell, I retrieve the cell, and that cell of course contains the image that I want to show in my detailed view. Now, but we want to navigate. Remember, we're doing this within the context of a navigation, and we've got a nav controller. We have to find that nav controller, and the only way to do that is through the storyboard. Well, this thing doesn't have a reference to the storyboard because it's a view, it's not a controller. And the way that I do this, so I'm able to get around this limitation by using the storyboard from name. And I'm only have one storyboard, which is my default, and it happens to have a name of main. So we get a reference to our storyboard, and then we can use this to instantiate our view controller. And then remember, and this photo detail came in because remember when we created our storyboard, this was the storyboard ID we assigned to our back here in our storyboard. Here, my storyboard ID. Now, this is very important. If we don't have this, then my code here is not going to work because this has to be the storyboard ID. And then we will take, now we've got the cell. We have our custom cell, of course, and this is what we created back in our data source. And in there, we have the photo image is in our cell. We just assign this to our custom view controller and the properties, so that it's now available in the custom class. Now, here's my big kludge. Hate this, but I will try and find a way around it, but right now I don't. Back in my controller, what I did here is I created this, I have this global static class. Blah, blah. But it works. It's a static class, and I have in here a nav controller. And dismiss this. I don't need this. This was left over from. This is so I can access my navigation controller. And again, I apologize. So, and it's this, but I get this nav controller, and I use the push view controller to push to this to move to navigate or to segue to my detailed view, and the detailed view will contain the image that we want to see. So now we're going to do some work on our detailed view, and this is our controller. We just have a blank controller. I'm going to do this a couple ways. One, I will use the Visual Studio Designer, kind of for my dead body, but just for this video, I will attempt to do it. And in lieu of Xcode, and number 2, I will do it in code. So to start with, we just take a scroll viewer, pop it over here. We want this. We now want to add constraints that'll so it'll fill its container. And the way we do this is we just grab this and this guy and drag it to the borders. And now we really want these to be 0 relative to our super view. And so now, but of course, if we look at the layout now, these are not, and this is the super view, this is the layout guide. This ideally would be this super view, but I think you get the idea. But of course not. So there's 2 ways to change this to 0. Number 1, we can double click and get into an editing mode, and we can change this into a 0. And now this was 4, or we can double click on the, let's see, double click on this guy, and we can change it in place to 0. And do the same thing here for this guy and make it 0. And my top, make it 0. So that we have, so what we're saying, it should have, ooh, it's interesting, it didn't grow, did it? Let's see what it did. It didn't do it. Okay. This is why I don't use this editor. It is really challenged. However, you got to struggle with this to make these zeros. And I'll go back here once more, and I will grab this one, and I will make it 0 here, and okay, it expands, and we'll again try this one, this method, and make it as 0. Okay, it looks like it might have done it this time, but you can see this is you really have to kind of struggle with this. But in the end result, we should have what we want. We have no we have our now this says the layout guide. I think it still works, but our constraints are just 0 to the super view boundaries. So we're going to the scroll viewer will be totally contained in whatever container we're in. That means it'll fill anything that is on any device. Now, then I'm going to take and I'm going to add to this. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to add the image view, and I'm going to do the same thing with it. I'm just going to make sure that its constraints are the same to my container, and the same exercise, which I won't go through, but because you just do exactly the same things. So in Xcode, easier, but this works as long as you're careful to get them the same, all 4 0, and then the scroll view knows what its scrolling content is, and it's then able to provide the scrolling functions whenever we have an image that is larger than that scroll view space. So why do you even bother with the scroll view? Well, number 1, if we had a large image, which I will show you in the next part of the video, is we're able to pan through it. And number 2 is we're able to pick up very easily some zooming code. And I've written this stuff in systems like WPF, and it's so much more difficult. So our scroll view, by just I'm just going to uncomment these three lines of code here. We set our maximum zoom scale and our minimal, and then in this our view for our zooming, we set is a when it's set up this delegate for our handler, and as a delegate we're going to pass it in the scroll view, because we want to be able to set this zooming view And this, of course, is my lambda. And to the right side of us, we will return the selected photo, which is our image view. Now, and then we're able to. I will show you in the how this works on the phone in the video I make from the phone. We're just able to now pinch and zoom, and makes it so easy. And number two is oh, and I'll show you if I wanted to do this in code instead of playing around with my constraints. The way I would do this is I would new up a scroll view and give it its width and height would be my views frame width. So it'll take up the whole space minus the navigation frame height if there is a navbar. Probably should be a check in there for is there a navbar. And then we're going to add this as a subview of our containing view. And then we will instantiate our image view, and again it'll have the same size. So the same thing we did with our constraints. We made these two exactly the same size, the image view and the scroll view. And then we want to set the scroll view content size to the frame width and height, so the scroll view knows what to scroll. And we will now add our scroll view to our. I'm sorry. We'll add the image view as a child of our scroll view, and do the same things. We'll set up our zooming, and just for another little feature here, I added a pinch, or I added a pinch gesture so that we can just double click or double tap, and we'll make this smaller or larger. So this is what the application looks like running on my iPhone 6. Hey, it looks very similar to the camera app. Big surprise. Anyways, we can take and we can scrolls very nicely in the collection view. Then we can select any of the images. We see our detailed view. We can zoom in, zoom out, and we can also pan, of course, within the zoom view, and then back to the collection. So my last little example here, I'm just going to show that the scroll view really indeed does let you handle large image files and to scroll or pan through them. So what I've done is I go back to my photo collection data source, and I make a little change here to return not just my thumbnails. And notice I've changed how I've done my thumbnails here, which is the CG size of 100 by 100. I now have a lambda, and so my delegate is taking an image and a dictionary, and now that remains the same. However, what I've as before, except I just changed its style to its now function delegate. And just to show you that there's two ways of doing this. And now there's another call you can make into the image assets, and this is request content editing input, MOFO. And this, again, I'm going to place I have a delegate here, and this delegate, this will return the full path of the image, and I'll get back to full path, not just the thumbnail. And this is what I set to the full image here. So now I just made a small change to my collection view, and I check if that cell, if the full image is not null. And a lot of times, for some reason, it does return null. And but if it's not, then I will set its our image in our detail view to this guy, and then we're able to pan through the large image. I know we covered a lot here. Hope this helps. So this is what the application looks like on my iPhone 6, and gee, it's scarily similar to the camera app. Gee, we may have some competition. Darn. But one just takes and clicks on these, and of course these are large images. In this case, I'm showing the case where I'm showing the full image and not the thumbnail. So we have large images, so we can pan and we can pan around. And this is me and my friends on a ski trip. And then of course you can zoom, and you can in and out. So little code. These iOS is pretty good stuff. Anyways, I hope you guys like this, and more soon.